All right, so that's on.
Are you Alan?
I am.
He was last time, too. Last time I saw him, that was his name.
But I have never seen him before, so I didn't know. All righty, sir.
Although this thing's way smaller than I am.
But there's a power switch on the side too.
You gotta slide it up on the side. Quick slide.
Is it working?
It's
Yeah, slide it up, and it'll reset.
it's the smallest thing that's ever kicked my ass.
Okay, we're recording. We pushed the red button arrow. It's 5:06 on January 12th. So we'll call the meeting of the Tilton Northfield Fire District Building Committee to order. Present is Tim Sattler, Kevin Waldron, Kevin Kate, and Commissioner John Silly. Member of the public is Alan Clark from REI Service Corporation. We'll skip old business for the moment, and we'll give Mr. Clark an opportunity to present to the committee his proposal on what his firm does.
Well, thank you.
Now, if you could come over here so the
Camera?
camera can see you.
I can do that.
So my name is Alan Clark. I'm president of REI Service Corporation, fire chief in the town of Sugar Hill for the past 20 years, chairman of the State Board of Fire Control, which is governor appointed, committee chair of the New Hampshire Fire Standards and Training, which is the Fire Academy and EMS, head of Penny Search and Rescue. If you watch Northwoods Law, you've probably seen me several times on that. So I do quite a bit. I've been building for 51 years, and I've built about $500 million, a little more than $500 million of stuff, including here in Northfield. Those houses on Zion Hill, those were my houses. I built those primarily for two of my sons lived in Northfield for quite a few years. I didn't build the last one. I sold that lot just because the difficulty in finding tradesmen. When I say build, I'm not a builder. My job is make things happen. I'm a project manager. That kind of gets down to really making sure that the scope of the work is known, hiring an architect, hiring a contractor, making certain that the construction is as everybody expects, and then making certain that the project is delivered ahead of schedule and under budget. And I'm not here asking for a job. I'm here to maybe share with you some information that, based upon my years of experience, has proved to be very successful during my entire career. I've never had a project go over budget. I've never had a project under schedule. Go over schedule, including the North Conway project, which was a $6.7 million project that we started in July and finished a month early, and despite being in a pandemic, came in just under budget, not by a lot, but under budget. We put 75,000 brick down during the winter. We burned 31,000 gallons of propane trying to heat the outside predominantly, but that was in the budget, and things worked out. I guess why I'm here is a month ago I met with the commissioners, and they asked that I kind of share with you what I shared with them, which is a system that assures that a project, number one, is what the community needs as opposed to maybe wants, and two, a system that gets it approved and then completed, again, ahead of schedule and under budget. I don't know your background, so if you'd be willing to maybe just tell me a little bit about yourself, because I don't want to talk above you or below you, I want to talk to you. So you know a little bit about me. Where do you work?
So I'm on the commissioner representative to the board.
Okay.
I now work with the military as a contractor, medical records and all that. Used to be full-time military. Before that, I did electrical work, starting that in '93 up until 2009 when I went full-time with the National Guard and did that stuff.
I don't feel that that's necessary. You're
Okay.
here to tell us about what you can do for us and for the town,
Sure.
and that's what I want to hear.
Okay, that's fair. Bill, Chair. So, so as you know, and I know you have proposals before you. There are two ways of doing a construction project. One is using a general contractor where you have plans. They bid. You hire an architect.
I don't, I'm going to interrupt you, Alan. As I just stated, you're here to tell us why we need to hire you.
You don't. I'm gonna. Yeah.
We understand how the process works. I hope that will be obvious by the fact of where we're at
Okay.
in the process right now. Unless you guys feel differently, I'm just going to ask Alan to continue on with what advantages you bring to the process. We've made a decision to go with design build. That was accepted by the commissioners, and that's the direction that we're going. So how does your company make this process less expensive and
Yeah,
more
with all
efficient?
due respect, I'm gonna leave. I don't think this is headed in the right direction. You're not gonna hire me. It's a waste of my time. So.
We don't know that. I mean, one of your things that you said that got my attention when you were at the commissioners meeting was on schedule, under budget, wants versus need.
Right.
Those are right up my alley.
And mine as well.
And I think that's important because it seems that these municipal projects have a tendency to do none of that. They seem
Right.
to blow the schedule
Yeah.
and the budget. So if we can end up, what is that? I'm sorry.
That's fine.
If we can end up in a position where we have someone with that history, there can't be, there's no downside there.
Okay.
And from what you tell us, you have great success doing that. I don't think you're here to steer us away from any place we want to go. And I wouldn't want you to do that because, I mean, I appreciate you coming down here because there's no good way to get here than helicopter. I didn't see one in the law.
It's a long ride.
But no, I would like to hear more from you. Because I think, and I left, as I think you know, the commissioners meeting with a lot of good thoughts.
Mhm.
The only thing is, as I mentioned before, was the thing where it appeared that there would be an effort to stack a meeting to get it approved.
Not necessarily.
And after thinking about that, I'm like, no, that probably wasn't what was meant. I mean, you don't come across as overbearing and I know this and if it ends up that you can help us, sounds selfish, but if you can help us, and in the end we end up in engaging your services, that's a plus for both. I don't know what word you know. In projects that I've been involved in the past, which were not municipal, we would sometimes hire something we call, in its old terminology, clerk of the works. Is that kind of in a nutshell?
No.
You are, you something different?
Yeah, we're much bigger than that.
Okay.
So clerk of the works essentially is somebody that's on site every day, and he's checking to make certain that everything that's in the plans is actually being done. He's checking materials as they come, and just is there as eyes of whoever the owner is that contracted with this. We are much larger than that, so we would get involved from we want to get involved as early on in the project as we can, because it's critical, I think, that you identify, before you hire anybody, that you identify first of all, the wants of the agency. And then you start off with the wants, and so in North Conway, when we went through what they wanted, we would have been a 25,000 square foot building, and which wouldn't have fit on the site. That would be the idea there. There's certainly still one member on the committee that's absolutely convinced that what was built is not big enough. So we ended up with 16,000 square feet.
From what number, 28?
25,000, we got down to
25 to
16,000. So what I bring is 50 years of building stuff. In the fact that I'm a fire chief, I'm involved with code review, code. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of needs versus wants. And as a result of that, it becomes a process. So the process starts off initially with identifying, as I said, the wants. And we start off if I may. That one.
You got a blank page there.
This page intentionally left blank.
I think you borrowed my printer. It spits out one blank for everyone that prints.
Oh, mine does that sometimes as well.
So we sit down with the agency and usually some members of the committee, and we start to identify what the needs are. And so we know that a municipal building is going to have a life of greater than 50 years. But we need to program it for both now and the future. And I'm not good enough to tell you what you're going to need in 50 years, but I can give you some idea of what your needs are going to be 2025. And so we start by identifying all of the rooms that are needed, and then we start working on trying to get the size. So then,
Do you have another one of those?
Oh, yeah.
Put there.
we're talking about that.
Thank you.
So once we do that, we start working our way, making certain that everything that is in the wants is going to be a need. And some we start them right off because, you know, sometimes chiefs want their office to be about 500 square feet. I'm like, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. I mean, you're not gonna get this approved. It's absurd. So we kind of play that role of trying to work to get that scope into an area that's going to be realistic. Once we do that, we typically start kind of figuring out what needs to be adjacent to each other, and we come up with a very rough schematic plan. And then working with the committee and the agency, we try to develop an idea of what is it? What kind of a building? What kind of a building do you want? So this is North Conway. This is high, obviously very high end. that's my 75,000 square foot of brick.
Where is it?
North Conway, right next to the train station, right where the old one was.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You saw that now?
Yeah, believe it or not, we
Really?
put that on it.
So, no cross circle.
Yep, no cross circle. Right exactly where the old station is. We put on that old station and somehow pluck that in. We're right up, we're 5 feet on every property line. And thank God the country club allowed us to use their lot for staging of, and the railroad was very good because we're right there. So that's one level, and that's not a design build. To get that kind of a building, we hired the architect and we gave him very, very specific information. And where I was leading before is if you don't rein in the architect, they will do their job, and then when you go and price it, it's nowhere near what your expectations are.
We have a fair amount of experience with not being approved.
Yeah. So then,
That goes to the needs and wants.
yes, oh yeah, yeah.
You know, the two prior plans that were put before the voting body were all wants.
Yeah, well, unless,
And
those are wants, and they got a lot of them. They didn't get them all, but they got an awful lot, they got a lot. I
the
mean,
goal of this committee, and it stems from the prior planning committee that some of us sat on, was we all agree that we need a new fire station.
Yep.
And that ideally having one station where all the apparatus and all of the staff are housed is what we want to do.
Oh, wow, okay.
The last proposal that was put before the voting body was a $7.5 million station on property that we didn't own. That was, in my opinion, was all wants.
Mhm, mhm.
The prior committee was charged with determining where, first, whether we needed one station or two, and where it would be best to build that one or two stations. The conclusion of that committee was that we needed one station, and that the best place to put it was on Park Street.
Oh,
Because we already own the property.
yeah, yeah.
Because there's plenty of room there, and that was prior to us acquiring additional land from the state of New Hampshire.
Oh, wow, okay.
And the biggest reason behind all those decisions was cost. We knew that the last proposal at $7.5 million didn't pass resoundingly. The one prior to that was, correct me if I'm wrong, about $4.5 or $5 million. So we know we have to be under that number. And there's no reason why we can't be, given that we own the property.
Right.
There's already a 4,800 square foot structure there that can be reused.
Mm-hmm.
And all the utilities, that was a big part of the cost on the last proposal, was bringing utilities to the property,
Right.
even though the property was being given to the fire district. And then there's a whole host of other pros that went into making that decision, but the biggest one was cost.
Right.
And we have to be able to get this fire station built, in my mind, for somewhere around $3 million. We may end up with a number that's higher than that or lower than that, but I think that's about where we need to be. And
You can't do North Conway for that,
No.
obviously. So the other picture is the station that I built up in Twin Mountain. That was a design build, so with very specific instructions, and so there's a significant difference between them.
Is this state built
Yes.
with Conjoy Loan or engineered?
No, conventional, pre-engineered roof trusses. Yeah. So there are a couple of things that you probably don't want to hear. One is it will be sprinklered, and if you attach it to the other building, that building will be sprinklered.
Do you say will, like?
Like there's no question, because that's code, and it will be reviewed by the fire marshal. So there's no getting around that. I'm working on trying to get that, if the building was less than 5,000 square feet, it would not have to be sprinkled, because that would be the same as any other commercial building. But right now, that's not, I mean, the code says very specific, public fire, ambulance, police have to be sprinkled. So, if you're two stories, you're gonna have an elevator, no matter what you think that, you know, you're gonna have an elevator. You're gonna have a mezzanine. You know, there's ways to beat some of it. You can have a mezzanine without an elevator, but if you have, like, you know, you're a career department with Paul, and you're gonna have sleeping quarters, if you put that upstairs, you're gonna have to have an elevator. It's not the end of the world.
You have to have an elevator to cold storage?
No, probably not the storage, but we're living, you know, if you had bunk rooms, you're gonna have to have an elevator.
And that was another part of our decision-making process, that it's gonna be a one-story.
Yeah, if you got the land, that would be the way to go. It saves a lot of money. And the other thing is that stairwells and elevators are square footage that you're paying for that doesn't, you don't use it, you know, it moves you, but it's not an office, it's nothing that is part of the efficient use of the building. So one of the things that we focus on is trying to make the building a couple of things. One, it needs to be durable. You have to make certain that it's going to be durable. So kind of in between those two buildings, the new police station kind of falls maybe in between there. It's good looking. It's predominantly block with some brick. Some good details that didn't cost a whole lot, but makes it an attractive building. We think durability is extremely important. We think having low maintenance is very important because municipalities, governmental entities don't do a good job of typically maintaining property. But then probably the most important is being energy efficient, trying to make your operating costs as absolutely low as possible. And I think, you know, over the years, we've been able to do that. And it's by making certain that in your case, you know, you've gone out to construction management firms that are going to pair up with an architect, which is an excellent way to proceed. However, you need to make certain that you rein them in to some idea of what your scope is, so that you're not wasting everybody's time designing the North Conway project when your budget is more in the Twin Mountain range. And that's what we bring to the table. We bring to the table the ability to go through that programming to come up with the overall size, and working again with in this case the department in the committee to try to come to an understanding of what wants are and needs are, so that you can come to a number that really makes sense. And that drives everything. And the other thing is looking at ways so that you can save money as we go forward. Being on a single floor is huge. I mean, if you've got the land to be able to do that saves significant amount of money. We look very closely on, you know, how is this building going to be heated? Is it going to need to be cooled? One of the other things that you should do is making certain that you're segregating your contaminated bunker gear from clean areas. And so, you know, that needs to be incorporated so that when the guys come back and they're covered with soot, that they're not going through any of what we would call the clean areas, the office area or any sleeping areas, so that they can go directly, they can take a shower, they can get their gear in queue to be washed. And the other thing is making certain that the where the lockers are, where they enter in, especially where a portion of your department is a call department, it's important to make certain that where they come in, they're not gonna get run over with somebody taking off in a truck, and segregate it from the office. All of that isn't terribly difficult. So this is.
Is that area typically adjacent to the apparatus?
Yes, yep. And so they can come in directly from that.
Yeah, we know how to get up there. It's like third grade, take one, pass it on.
Yeah, so this is,
You have one more in?
I'm sorry, thank you. There we go. Excellent.
so this is a floor plan that was developed for North Conway. It segregates what we call the dirty side from the clean side. Clean side being where the administrative offices are, and then on the second floor where the firefighters sleep, their kitchen day room, and then their training room. And so everything that's dirty is on one side. Their lockers and the locker room is segregated from where the contaminated stuff comes in. And that area also has the ability to have negative pressure. So they can put a negative pressure on the dirty side until they get everything clean, again, trying to keep any of those contaminants from going onto the clean side. And there's no question that those contaminants are carcinogens that cause cancer, and I suffered cancer because when I was younger, I kept my gear in my pickup truck, and back then we didn't know what know these. So, well, I started before we used SCBA. I mean, I'm old. And then we didn't realize that all this plastic crap were carcinogens, and I didn't want to look like I was a rookie, so the dirtier my gear got, the better. And the dummy kept it, it was in my pickup truck behind me, and I had, I got testicular cancer that's directly related to that. So, whatever you do, you need to just be aware that you want to segregate the dirty stuff. Now, granted, that only relates predominantly to structural fires, hazmat incidents, but not the everyday run calls. But up my way, it used to be moose accidents, because we used to have a lot of moose accidents, and we'd come back and would be just absolutely covered with ticks. So trying to not bring the ticks home was always kind of part of the deal.
How do you accomplish negative pressure?
So negative pressure is just built into the HVAC system, and we'll put exhaust. Normally you have positive pressure because of the air exchange in the rest of the building. It's simply a system that creates some exhaust, and you don't want big negative pressure, because otherwise all your heat, if it's in the winter like today, you don't want all your heat going out. And it's on a timer. It doesn't have to be negative all the time. It only has to be negative when you've got contaminated gear that hasn't had contaminated gear, and contaminated firefighters that haven't taken their showers and cleaned up, and the gear hasn't been done. So it's just something to keep in mind. And when you're working through the HVAC, it's something that you just want that to be involved.
It's a piece of that.
Just a piece of a bigger picture. We like radiant heat because your energy costs will be minimal. Once you get that, I think that slab might be 11 inches thick. Once you heat that slab up, it just maintains the temperature. We do we like to put Modine units in the corners, so if they go out and it's below 0. But they went out last night and they had a structure fire they come back, everything's frozen up, the truck is, you know, if it's -20, the truck's -20, everything's -20. We put in that supplemental heat just so that it'll get things back in service a little quicker. So, you know, to answer your question, you know, basically our experience helps to guide the project along. We more than save our fee on every project that we've done. We bring the project in, you know, under schedule. How do we do that? We hold a weekly job meeting and hold people accountable. We pay attention to making certain that things are moving. We're always looking at, you know, what's going to be a long lead item. A little different today than it used to be, but elevators are long lead items, so you're like, yeah, okay, well, we gotta get that ordered, whatever needs to be. We work very, very closely with the construction manager. We have good relationships with most everybody that's capable of getting a bond, so the larger contractors. But we just keep on top of it and making certain things don't slip through the crack. We do the same thing with the budget. So under a construction management contract, what I was going to say is a general contract, you have a fixed fee, and if he hires the electrical contractor and he had budgeted in his when he determined that fixed fee that the electrical contractor was going to be $400,000, and so he puts in his fixed price $400,000. Then when he gets the job, he beats the hell out of them and gets them down to $350,000. He just put $50,000 in his pocket because you've already agreed to the lump sum number. Works the other way too. If he figured $400,000 and it cost $450,000, he just ate $50,000 that kind of came out of him. With a construction management contract, you're paying actual cost. Paying cost plus a fee. The fee should be around 3 to 4%, somewhere in that range. And you're paying actual cost. So if it only costs $350 for the electrician, you pay $350, and you know, all the way through. And what we do, we check every one of those invoices, because not by fault of everybody, but sometimes you'll get an invoice that came in for a different job of them, and so we're on top of that to make certain that those invoices are good. We also participate. Typically, they'll go out, they'll get 3 electrical contractors, and they may range in price. Low bid's not always best bid. And so we help analyze, well, this guy's got everything in it, this guy doesn't, that's why he's low. This guy doesn't want the job, that's why he's high. And, you know, I don't know, we've done a lot of work with Jagir. You know, it's like, yeah, he's not the lowest, but he's not going to nickel and dime you for change orders, and he's easy to work with. And then you would agree mutually, all right, we'll use Jagir. Site, and none of you guys are site guys, I hope, but you know, site guys are very, very difficult to constrain, because they've always seemed to come up with some reason why they ran into something that they need to charge more. So there's an area. The best one we've ever used was that just happened to be North Conway, a local guy that was outstanding. But I can tell you some horror stories where you're watching them every step of the way. So that's what we do. That's how we keep the project on budget. And I know where we are in budget all the time, because I ask the construction manager, all right, here's what you budgeted, here's what you contracted, and where are you now? And so based on that information, I know monthly exactly where we should end up with this project. And that what the advantage to that is, if you're in trouble, you don't put the granite countertops that I have in North Conway. But I knew I was okay. They wanted granite countertops. It certainly wasn't in a million years that I think we were gonna have granite countertops. But I knew where I was. I knew where all my costs were, and I'm like, all right, you want granite countertops? It's our building, we can make it work. But I'm the guy that has to have that ability to control that. You know, they wanted in that tower a light that would apparently show the mood of the chief or something. It would glow red and yellow or blue, you know, I think. And we got the price, and like, we don't, you know, that's absurd. I'll tell you what, why don't we make certain that all the wiring's there, and depending upon where we end up, we can spend that 10 grand, or you can go find 10 grand someplace and put your fancy light up in there. That's what we bring. That's how we manage the project. We meet on a weekly basis. We're monitoring both the schedule and that budget, and we're also making certain that, like the clerk of the works would, but we're not there every day, is that, you know, we didn't spec brick and we're getting block. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not what we did. In a nutshell, that's what we do.
What is your opinion of conventional wood frame construction? Have you ever put up a building with all engineered lumber?
No, but it's very, I mean, it's
more stable
than.
than.
It's more, you know, it's more expensive. But, you know, so if you're gonna do wood frame, you need to put insulation board on the exterior, because we used to think wood was a good insulator. We now know it's not. So your studs, you drive by a house on a cold morning and you can see every rafter.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so if it's going to be wood frame, we would recommend. And again, this is where our experience, our expectations help. I'm a building official in three towns.
Yeah, we need a building official in Northfield.
Huh? No, I don't. I'm trying to get away with that business. That's not a good business. That, you know, we put inch and a half of styrofoam, rigid board, then the sheath, and then on the inside, what we would recommend is that you do an inch and a half of spray foam. That seals everything up pretty well. And then do the electrical and the plumbing in a 2x6 stud. I don't like putting spray foam around my electrical. I just think that's, at some point in time, that's going to be an issue. So then fill that cavity. I like dense pack fiberglass, but you can use cellulose with them. Yeah. And then you come up with a wall that's R32 that doesn't cost a whole lot of money. If you did like the police station, and I don't know the details of how, but if you're using a block, you're going to use an insulated block. You're going to, but to make it energy efficient, now you're going to build a wall inside that block wall so that you can get your electrical, and then you can get the insulation factor that you need. No matter what you do, don't let anybody tell you to put in hollow core steel exterior doors. They need to be fiberglass.
Yeah, I wouldn't write on anything about personally.
I mean, no matter what anybody tells you, they rot from the inside, and 5 years from now, you're going to drive by and they're all going to be rusted at the bottom. So, yeah, that's what we do. I guess is make certain that the project moves along in an orderly way. If given the opportunity, we have a couple of architects that work really, really cheap that would come up with a schematic plan, and then we would we would develop preliminary specifications, and then we would go out to the various construction managers, and we have developed over the years a couple of things. One, you want to identify their general conditions. because that's one area where they can beat you up. So the electrical contractor, you're gonna get the contract get the invoice, you can check that. But what he's charging for his pickup trucks and what he's charging for a shovel, some of these guys get pretty creative. So we recommend they identify that right up front, or some of them will do it for a percentage or whatever it is. And then on top of that, what's included as far as personnel. Is there a project manager? Now sometimes you run into a construction manager. So we have one up north, Dan Hebert, excellent contractor, does his own plumbing. How the hell do you know that this price for plumbing, you couldn't hire the guy in Belmont, whose name escapes me, and do it cheaper? So in those particular cases, you need to have a mechanism in place. So anything they're going to do with their own resources, you have to identify up front so you don't get shocked by it. But anyway, that's where, if we were starting from scratch, we would have already identified the program. We would have worked with you to identify kind of what you would like it to look like. In the North Conway one, it was based upon a station that's in Saco, Maine. This was far superior to it, but it was very comparable. So we went and visited, talked to the chief there. He told us all the nightmares that they had because theirs was the traditional architect put together the package, they bid on it, and they couldn't, when it was built, they couldn't flush the second floor toilets because there wasn't enough water pressure, and theirs was a nightmare. But we kind of liked the outside, although they used precast. The granite in that building was all precast, and you could already see the kind of the salt air and stuff was just, and they're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. It's going to be granite. The Twin Mountain one was kind of based on the station that I built in Franconia. So we had good information, and that way there we can narrow in and shorten the time frame that your construction manager with his architect is working from, and you can compare apples to apples. So we have, typically what happens, I don't know how many you get, but typically we identify 5 construction managers that any of the 5 you would hire. I don't like exercising somebody. If you're not going to use, I know Hutter's in there. So if you wouldn't hire Hutter under any circumstances, we don't put them through that exercise. So we go kind of through a pre-qualification. Don't get me wrong. That's nothing wrong with Hutter. I knew you had Hutter. So we have a very specific format that they need to come. We want to know their general conditions. We want to know their markup. We make them identify project manager, and then typically from those 5, there are 3 that kind of rise to the top, and then we have interviews with them. And at that interview, we want to know who the project manager and the job super. So you could be the best company in the world, and if I give you my worst job super, you're not going to be happy. So we try to identify who that job super is going to be. See if they're going to fit with your style. So, not to tell a tale out of school. So, I know you were talking to Bonapage and Stone. Excellent firm. Worked with them. Know those guys. They came to Twin Mountain dressed in suits. Big mistake. I mean, right off the top. It's like that wasn't a suit crowd. These were guys, regular guys. Very professional presentation. From a technical standpoint, the best presentation, but nobody liked them because it's like these guys are going to be tough to deal with. The other extreme was Coniston Construction, CCI, Jeff. He shows up, and I told him, I know Jeff, I've worked with him. I did the Laconia Mental Center where we took three buildings and made it into a modern medical mental center. He's gonna show up, he's gonna have denim boots, you know, white socks, shorts, and a ripped t-shirt, and he's gonna sit in a chair, and he's gonna talk to you. And that's him, and that's how. And then we had a fellow from Ritchie Construction that was kind of in the middle, and they kind of liked how we did business and whatever, and that's really what it went. But we have developed a scorecard, so we try to take the emotions out of it and try to stay with facts. We also identify, so you can have high general conditions and a very low fee, and you're going to end up at the same place as the guy that has reasonable general conditions and a medium fee. Bonnet, Page and Stone historically has a very, very low fee, but they make it up in their general conditions. So we do an analysis that try to narrows that down so that the committee can look and say, well, they're really, you know, don't go by that, because when you do the analysis, they're really all kind of in that same boat. And there are different attributes, and we ask everybody to do it individually, and then after you've seen all three, you go through an analysis, and usually somebody just rises to the top that fits your needs and expectations. So we do that, and also you need to like who they pair up with an architect. So in Franconia, I was 100% certain that Coniston was going to get the construction. They just did the country club, the clubhouse at the country club in Franconia. I've known them; they did a great job, and they bring in an architect and proceed to tell the police chief, you know, where his office was, which is not where we wanted his office. So it was adamant about it. It's like, oh my God, you know. And so they went to the bottom of the list, even though they were the best group. So you kind of, you're looking at them as a package. But the bottom line is if they're bonded, which they have to be, chances are you can't go wrong with any of them, and their prices are not going to be terribly different. And it comes down to who do you feel the most comfortable working with? What style do you feel most comfortable working with?
Out of any top three in the end, you have a feeling for what their price spread would be percentage-wise?
No, I mean, so you're not working off of, they're not working off of plans, so you really can't base it on what their guaranteed maximum price is. So typically, they may give you a ballpark. You're in the 4 million range, or in the 10 million range, or whatever it is. But they're going to be very, very close as far as that ballpark. So then what typically happens is now you've got your construction manager and you've got your architect. You now get them to start developing plans. But before they get anywhere near 100%, when they're about 50%, that construction manager can tell you what the guaranteed maximum price is. And under your agreement, if they come back with a guaranteed maximum price that's not acceptable, you say, sorry, you know, you're out of our, that's not where we thought we would be. But typically, because you're working as a team, the way you get in trouble with that lump sum is that you're allowing an architect to design a building kind of in a vacuum. And if he misses
He's going to build, if you tell him a number, that's what he's going to build.
No.
Yeah, if you tell him, okay, we got $4 million to spend, he's going to design a $4 million building. He's not going to design a $3 million building.
But that's not my experience. So, and the other issue is if he forgot to show a bookcase, that's going to be a change order. So you run the risk of getting changed ordered to death. Under the concept that you're working with, where the architect works for the construction manager, you're now creating a team. And so the construction manager is given input, ideally all the way along. And he's going to bring in a mechanical guy that's going to help design the HVAC system right up front. Now you have a much better chance of coming in kind of where you need to be as far as budget. And if he forgets the bookcase, it doesn't matter, because it's within, it's within the scope of the entire project. And you'll have much better success at coming in at a guaranteed maximum price. Architects do crazy things. If a standard brick is 8 inches, they'll design something that'll require every other brick to be, it's 7 1/4 or something, and then the mason has to cut every other one or something. It's like, whereas under the process that you're going, the construction manager's gonna say, bullshit, make it, you gotta make it, in houses, we always make it 2-foot increments, because that's the way the lumber comes. If you made the floor joist needs to be 12 feet 8 inches, that means you're buying a 14-foot floor joist. So by working together, and the big area where you're going to run into money issues, electrical is huge. Because it's not like, when I grew up, when you put plugs and, lights and plugs. But now you've got all the data, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got, all kinds of, miles and miles of wiring that go into it. So electrical is gonna be expensive. You're gonna be all LED lights. There's no option as far as that. You're gonna find that your electrical operating costs will be very reasonable, but your electrical capital cost is going to be expensive. And then the big area is your mechanical. And so you want to make certain that whoever you use, that you want to meet with that mechanical contractor. You want to make certain that you're going to get what you want, and not something that he can find on sale that will work for the first 10 years or 5 years, and we run into that. So, and we would recommend on the mechanical, a lot of times that's design build under these things. So they hire a mechanical contractor, and he designs it. We would always recommend that you have a third-party engineer just review it to make certain it works, because that mechanical is always the issue. It either is too hot, too cold, too expensive to run. With negative pressure, you got to be very careful, because you don't want to be exhausting out today 70-degree air and bringing in 20 more than what needs to be. So it's the mechanical guy is very, very critical.
Yeah. You don't want doors that you can't open
because of negative pressure. You see that sometimes going into restaurants when they have their ventilation for their food. It's like, holy crap.
So I got an elderly gentleman get whacked by a door like that. It slammed shut behind him, and he was on a walk.
So that's what we do. We make the project help. We help market it to the voters, and I don't mean market in any negative way. We want the voters to be fully informed of what the impact is going to be, so that they can make intelligent decisions.
That's one of the big things that didn't happen with either of the two previous proposals. It was dumped on the public at annual meeting with no public involvement. One of the things that we've discussed is having regular public meetings. And even if nobody shows up, at least we can say, well, you had the opportunity to be here and see what we were doing. And I believe that was part of the success in getting the police station approved over in Tilton. They provided more information to the public than I think a lot of the public really cared about. But the committee was accessible. They took public input, and everybody knew what was going on.
So in both Franconia and Twin Mountain, less so in North Conway, because just a whole different dynamics. You're a district, they're a precinct, and 50 people showed up and 47 voted for it, 3 against. But we expanded the committee, and so we kept the committee involved all the time, and their job was to go out. But in Twin Mountain, you know, we started right at the very beginning, once we started to develop the concept, the floor plan, and the kind of what the exterior is. So again, what we're looking for is, number one, is we want them to have the knowledge of what's going on, so they can either buy in or not. But typically they buy in, and you ask them, you know, sometimes they come up with silly things like, you know, I think the chief should have a wood stove in his office, like New Hampton. Yeah, you know what that costs? I mean, it's like, you know. But you take in this information, so they buy in, so that they have some say. And then we bring them along the entire way, and well before your meeting, you know, they know what the impact on the taxes. It's not, you know, it's not a secret. It doesn't mean that's what the taxes are going to be, because there's all these other things that go into it. But, you know, this building is going to add $1.25 to your taxes. I mean, you know, based upon the assessed value and the cost of it. We also assist with grants. We've been very successful. Twin Mountain, I think what I got, but I think I got a $350,000 grant, no more than that. That we had to finagle a little bit because they didn't fund fire stations, but we had to do some intersection improvements. And so, yeah, we do that. I'm like, perfect. So we broke out that. So I think we got $350,000 there. We got another $50,000 grant for some furniture. There's not a lot of governmental grants. There weren't a lot of governmental grants, but there are grant opportunities. That was on Eversource. I think we were able to get about $20,000 in rebates because of efficiency. Just a pain in the neck, but we do all of that paperwork. That this year got shot down by the PUC, but it's coming back. And so there are opportunities there. You know, and we do. That's part of what we do. Just try to make the impact on the taxpayers the least. I don't work for money. I work because I like to work. I made my money. And my wife doesn't want me home, so I try to find things to do to get out of here. But I can tell you, it drives my wife crazy, but I'm running around the house, turning off lights. I've got my father's mentality. He worked in a foundry. He watched every goddamn buck. I look at every buck as if, although it's not my dollar, as far as I'm concerned, it is. And that's how you keep it under budget. You pay attention. You just say, you know, it's only $50. Well, $50 starts to add up if you're not paying attention to it. And I guess that's what we bring. We're not architects, we're not contractors, we're project managers. We make certain that the project meets the needs of the community or the owner. We did Lakes Region Mental Center. We had a tight budget, very complex project because we had 3 buildings that we tore out to basically the brick shell and then started back in. We had all kinds of issues about we couldn't run ductwork from room to room because if you were talking to one of their patients, the guy next door can't hear. So we're trying to represent you, the commission in this particular case, to get the best product for the least amount of money. What we do.
Is this list, I mean, I know this is North Conway, but is this a list of what could be in any fire station?
Yeah, I don't know,
Because
I mean, they have, what do they have? Well, they have a fitness room that they gotta use. was pretty significant. And,
I'm chuckling because that's one of my pet peeves.
what? the
Fitness
fitness
rooms?
You guys want to work out, I'll get you membership to Planet Fitness, but I'm not building a gym.
And we got a beautiful one, but I'm like, in the committee was sort of, it's like, it's gonna get used. And so they have an association that had money on it. Hey, you do everybody a favor, but we'll build it, you buy the equipment, we bought it, and they paid for it. That's the other thing that we do. So we do everything. I mean, we're involved in the furniture, any equipment that goes in. I figured in my budget for North Conway, 2 big, one extractor and 1 dryer that could handle 6 sets of gear, which I'm like, that's huge. And Chief says, I want 2. I found the money, negotiated with the supplier. And we have good bargaining power because they know it's not a one-time thing. I don't know how many more years I'll do this, but they know, I mean, I've got staff, and I gave my company to my employees, so I'm a president, but I don't own it anymore. So I do have employees that eventually take my place. But because we're constantly kind of in the market, we can negotiate pretty hard. The fitness equipment, I mean, is top rate equipment, but we got that good. So we do. I mean, we put the sheets on the goddamn beds. You can believe that. So
Are you at all familiar with the site we're talking about?
right here,
Yeah.
I was there just before I came.
Yeah. So at some point, we've got to figure out if this new structure is gonna touch the old one or not. I think that's a big deal.
It is, and but we've known that all along.
Right, but I mean, we need to make that determination, I think sooner rather than later.
Yes.
So let me explain one other thing that we do. So Franconia spent 12 years before they got it approved. They hired me, we got it approved that year. But that's because it was a volunteer committee going in many different directions. Months go by. I mean, I was with the commission, it was, I think, December 9th, which seems to me like it was yesterday. So months go by really, really quick. And, you know, hire me, don't hire me, I really don't care. I'd love to do the job. I think I'd love to work for you. If you don't like my personality, don't hire me. If you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. I don't care if you like it or not. That's who I am. That's how I built my career. That's how I built my estate. But I think, you know, you got to have somebody that's kind of the Bill Belichick, the guy that's moving this thing along all the time. You may or may not like him, but he's moving. He's got a plan. He's moving it forward. Twin Mountain, 11 years. They went before a town meeting and got shot down. I like to say they hired me in the past. We lost by 2 votes. That's an SB2 town. And
Twin is SB2?
Huh?
Twin Mountain's SB2.
Yeah.
Carroll, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
We
surprising.
lost by 2 votes. That was the year during the blizzard.
Oh,
And I know 6 firefighters that didn't vote because it was terrible. You know, and I kept saying, there were people that are going to vote no. It was a combination police fire. If it was fire, it would have gone through probably no problem, but there's people that don't like the ladies. And then there were people that simply couldn't afford it. And I'm like, you're going to get no votes. Even though we haven't heard anything, you're going to get no votes. So you got to make certain that if you're a yes vote, you got to. So we went back with the exact same project. Didn't change anything except increase the price by $500,000. It cost them $500,000. We expanded the committee to just get out there, make certain that facts were out there. You know, there was a guy that didn't like the cops that said, you know, your taxes are going to go up $800. It was, you know, a typical house in Carroll. it was gonna go up $64. I mean, we had all the numbers. So, you know, they worked, and then the second year, I don't know, it was 90% in favor. Franconia was 7% in favor after getting beat down.
Did they do a bond?
No, we didn't do it. None of my projects of those, those three projects weren't bonded, included, so we were able to negotiate with a bank, a conventional bank, a more favorable rate. So I think North Conway, it's like 1.8% fixed, 20 years.
Really?
No closing costs, no nothing. Now, which was less than the bond market at the time.
Yeah.
Bond market, you know, you can bond it, I mean, you need to look at what's the best deal out there. But we've found banks like these loans. You know, they can, it's part of their community reinvestment, it's pretty much guaranteed they're gonna get paid back. And again, what do? We're the one, we put together an RFP for the financing, we send it out, when we get proposals back, and then we bring them to the committee and say, what do you want to do? Typically, the committee makes a recommendation to the commission. So, you know, we did pretty good, I thought, 20-year fixed rate, 1.9%.
Absolutely.
I think Town of Carroll, Twin Mountain, 2.6 or so. Franconia, now this was in 2016, might have been 2.9 or something. Lower than the bond market. Interest rates are going to come up, but I've been saying that for 10 years. So. But that, again, that's, you ask what we do everything. I mean, we didn't have, the North Conway station has, I don't know, 10 huge televisions spread out. Some of them, I don't know, do you use active 911 or I am responding or something?
Well, that sounds familiar, right? I am
So, you
responding.
know, we have those in the apparatus bay and stuff. I mean, we were rushing to get it done. You know, I brought a couple of my guys, we put the TVs up, not our job, didn't charge, we just gotta get this done. Help out as you can. So anyway, it's, you know, that's what we do. I wasn't here, I really wasn't here. I'd be happy to put together a proposal if you think it's of interest. I just wanted to share with you a process that works, that's proven. I'm sure there's other people that do what I do, but if you think the committee or the fire chief can effectively do all of this, my experience is you're wrong. Just, you know, unless you get somebody that's not working, get full time to put into it. Does that help?
Yes, it does, to answer your question. Then, before I say anything else, I want to apologize for you apparently misunderstood, or I didn't communicate well what I was asking.
Okay. So,
You gave me exactly what I wanted you to do without any fluff. But, you know, let's get down to the facts. I don't need all the other stuff.
no, I understand.
So if I offended you, I apologize. You gave me exactly what I was looking for. What do you do, and why should we hire you?
Or hire, again.
Hire your company.
Or no, or hire somebody like us. I think if you want to be under budget and ahead of schedule, you need somebody other than the construction manager and the architect. You need somebody that's going to represent you guys.
You just said it. I don't think there's anyone in this room that can do. I could if I didn't have a business to run. You could if you didn't have a business to run.
Right.
You know.
And it's not our thing. We want to see it. We want to see it get done.
Right.
We don't want to do it.
Done right.
Now,
Exactly.
and you bring a lot more to the table than I know that I could. I mean, I don't have relationships with banks to go out and negotiate financing. I could care less, you know, what furniture they get. But as long as they don't get a gym. I have a couple questions I want to ask, but I'd like to throw out, Tim, do you have anything you want to ask of Alan?
I was just trying to understand how you get paid. A percentage, but that percentage is assuming that we've got approval and we're going forward. Is there
So,
some fee?
yeah, there's two parts to it, and if you want, if you think you'd have interest in hiring me, if I don't want to be exercised, we'll put the first part is on an hourly basis, because we're just trying to put everything all together. Once you have a budget, then we would switch to a percentage, and then it's a percentage of the budget. If you come in under budget, we'll cut a fee. And our fee is typically around 3-4%, and I guarantee you we'll save you a fee, just because of either getting grants or finding, it's just, if you ask me to show you how that is, I don't know if I can, on an accountant basis, show you where, but I guarantee you that by the end of the project, you'd realize, and you can talk to, anybody that we work for, that, that project, North Conway being during the pandemic, they'll tell you there's no way in hell that project would have gotten done under budget and ahead of schedule if it wasn't because I was driving the bus.
Does Conway have so Conway and North Conway
So there's
Center Conway.
It's
is
five.
one town, right?
Yeah, it's one, the town is Conway, there's 5 fire departments,
Right.
and then there's Center Conway, North Conway, Conway, Redstone, and East Conway, and there's 3 or 4 full-time chiefs. But North Conway is operated by the water precinct.
That's, so the fire station on 16 in Conway,
Yes.
maybe a
That's-
quarter to a half mile before the
Yeah.
west side
Yeah,
road.
that's
It's on-
Conway.
It's on the right side.
Right.
Is that a new station too?
No, that was an addition to an existing.
Not that it has anything to do with anything, but what's the deal with Carroll Twin? Carroll is the town.
Yeah, so Carroll's the town. There's a village of Twin Mountain, which is that intersection of Route 3 and 302.
Yeah.
And then there's the village of Bretton Woods, which is the hotel and all of that development.
But it's all actually the town
But
of
the town is Conway. Okay, maybe
Carroll.
Carroll.
Okay.
Suncook.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Actually,
I was rolling
it's
that in my
actually part of
head.
Allen's town.
Yeah.
Or most of
Okay. I just never knew anyone that actually knew it. I figured you might.
Did you have anything else to
And-
add?
I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to come in, and I think, from the standpoint of, I think we all agree that we don't have the expertise to do all those things that you said need to be done. But I think the other thing that's even more important is getting the project approved is the credibility. And right now, I don't think our committee has enough members that we can come forward with, I'm just gonna use the term credibility, to get the taxpayers to vote our way.
Agreed. Derek, did you have any questions?
Thanks for coming in.
John?
So this is the second time I've heard him. Definitely, I did walk into it with a little guarded the first time when I looked at the price cost and things like that. But after listening to it last time, and there was a lot more questions from the commissioners, and you said it even last time that you've seen many committees like this where they're bringing you in so late in the game and pulling in proposals and all this stuff when there's so much of this initial stuff that still had to be ran up and caught up on. So it was very beneficial. We've kind of stepped into some pitfalls that you explained have most committees wanting to do the best thing, not having that general, all that experience here, and so we kind of stepped into it. I definitely came out of that first meeting a little bit, much different opinion on savings and stuff like that. I know Kevin and I spoke afterwards. I think there are options out there that we should look at for the best benefit and see which way things go. I mean, to make sure, but I don't know. We'll see what the whole committee goes with on that.
Well, and I agree. We wouldn't be, none of us would be sitting here tonight if we weren't in favor of building a new fire station. And we all know what has happened in the past, that it's, you know, that dollar sign that has dissuaded people from voting in favor of it. So we want a fire station, we're willing to commit the time to making that happen, and we know that we need to do it under a certain number, or whatever that number may be. I had a couple of questions. How did you find out that Tilton Northfield Fire District was possibly going to be building a fire station?
I think from the newspaper, you know, I think it's been in. Kevin LaChapelle, which I think was involved with the police station, is a friend of mine. I don't know, I knew, you know, my two sons lived in town. I know, you know, I know over a period of time there's been discussions. I thought it was a good opportunity. It's an hour from my house. And it's on the highway, and it's like, yeah, that's, you know, Conway's an hour, but I had to go through Crawford Notch all winter, which wasn't fun. I gotta go through Franklin and Notch, but that's better than Crawford Notch. So, I don't know. The chief did not approach me. I guess I just, you know, I keep track. You know, Jackson's trying to do one. They hired an architect, same architect as North Conway. They asked him to put together a budget, and they came back at $700 a square foot, which is absurd.
That's because they also want granite countertops.
700 a square foot?
Yeah, and it's not it's a Twin Mountain station. It's not a North Conway.
Oh.
Again, it's a rather large committee driven by one of the selectmen, and, you know, I know the chief. I can cut that in half probably, without changing much of anything other than not using, you know, a pricing company that they went out, I think it was during the summer. So, you know, just to give you an example, a sheet of 3/4 inch of Vantec prior to the pandemic was in the $43, $44 range. At the peak, it was over 108, 110 contractor prices. And now it's down around 53, 54, which is probably, it's not gonna go back to 43 or 44. But that would give you, you know, so I don't know if they priced it. Yeah, the problem is, you know, I'm not certain, fire stations isn't what they normally do. The success of North Conway, and I think they would admit it, but not probably readily, was that we made their job so much easier. We were able to accelerate the construction. We were just able to, because we knew, we had already put together those preliminary specifications, so they just kind of had to fill in. Their expertise was in that look. I mean, that's what they're outstanding. We're submitting it for a national award. I mean, it'll stand up anywhere in the world, in the country, I think. So, you know, again, you know, they've been at this for a long time. For whatever reason, there's a connection between the select woman and the architect, and they don't want to listen to me, which is fine. Lincoln's looking at a public safety bill. So I mean, Jefferson, so I kind of keep tabs of what people are doing, but I can't tell you specifically about it.
You answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you. When you first started talking about, you know, what you do, and you mentioned needs versus wants, how do you determine what our needs are?
Well, because we do, first of all, I'm a fire chief, been in the fire service for a long, long time. I built, office building, I built the, in Manchester, I built what was Merchant Savings Bank building, which was 135,000 square feet. I think at the time, 26 million, today it would be over 100 million. Granite, suite, had to go to Italy to approve the granite color. That was hard
We're
work.
gonna be doing that here.
Yeah. Again, I was able to bring it
Who's the
in.
nearest quarry?
Was able to bring it in ahead of schedule, on budget. So I know, it's just, funny story about Twin Mountain. So that's a public safety bill, had police and fire. And I think it was prior to bringing in the construction manager, architect, it was prior to that, we had hired an architect, local architect here in Laconia, to kind of just, give an idea and an exterior sketch so that we could keep everybody on track. And for whatever reason, the police chief's office was like 130 square feet, and the fire chief's might have been 154. And you would have thought the end of the world had come. And he was going to go meet with the architect. This is absolutely no good. I pull him aside. What the hell's the problem? He says, why is the fire chief? That means he's more important. This police chief happened to be from Rhode Island. It's like, it's just we're not even there yet. It's like when it's done, if it's important. So we know 150 square feet is the right size for a fire chief. No matter what the hell they say. That's why on my sheet, the next sheet has all the square footages. And in a week, we were able to, after meeting and talking, we were able to come up with some pretty good numbers. We give those to the architect, and he works around them, and it may or may not come out to what those numbers are. But like the training room, if the fire department had their way, the training room would have sat 250. What do you need 250 person training room? If you need 250 person, move the trucks out, you got it, So, we know, and I think when it comes to fire, and now I guess I have enough expertise in police, I can sit and say, all right, how are we going to use this, and what's important, what's not, and usually we can come to consensus. But 150 square foot office gives you a beautiful desk, condenser, a little round conference table. In North Conway, he has a plan desk that he can put his plans up and review right in his eye. Plenty big enough. And right down the line. We know what you need for EMS. We know what you need for secured medications. I can show you pictures. This is what you need, right? That's exactly what we need. So that's how the process should work. And then you get all of that done, kind of just a step. We would just say, all right, well, just stay on hold. Let us do a little bit more of this work so we can keep you focused, and then go back and let them modify. And then I think you get a much better chance of having a project that will be a success, and that what the voters will want too. So I'm sure. Are you on the fire department? Don't tell the chief. But if the chief had his way. You'd want a fitness room.
He thinks that's where the $7.5 million project
So,
shall not.
So again, is there ways of getting around that? Yeah. So, but building a fitness room was expensive. It's all it's mirrored with special flooring, special air handling. And I don't know. So during during construction, we put up video cameras so I can see what's going on without being there. So when they, like, they're telling me, when I talk to the driver, oh yeah, report the flooding, I don't think so. I mean, it's like, unless someplace where I can't see. But even on, so I still think I have access to all the videos inside the building, and I haven't seen anybody in the fitness room. I'm sure there is. But anyway, that's what we bring. We know, so for EMS, we know what that med storage, all your med, we know we know exactly what that size needs to be. We've done it 3 times, works perfect, everybody thinks. Whereas somebody else might think it needs to be twice the size. Same, the police station. They need to have an interview room. The interview room, has to have specific requirements. And Carol, they didn't have it in there. It's like, it's not going to work. Well, how are you going to interview this guy? You've got to be secured. It's got to be, And so, I guess that's what I bring. And although I'm backed up by my company, you're stuck with me.
Great, thank you. That's good.
I'm good. My angst and reservation about a couple of things, the big one being stacking that. Because we all know it's happened here, that for certain things, the audience gets stacked to either dump something or get it to go. And I don't like either side of that.
The floor on the other side.
So I am
So what?
more than relieved that,
Yeah,
and thank you for,
that's not. I mean, so in North Conway, it's a precinct. They normally get about 50 people, and because of COVID, the March meeting got pushed to a Saturday in June at 3 o'clock, and the temperature was like 75, no humidity, and not a cloud in the sky. And I remember saying to the chief, were you expecting more? And he's kind of, I know just about everybody here, and they're all in favor because he had worked it, and that was a big relief. But our job is, and this committee should not be in the political arena. You should be making certain that the facts are known and let the voters, make an informed decision. But my thing is it needs, they should be based on facts and not what they hear at the transfer station.
Yeah.
And that's,
Social media.
yeah, which I don't go.
This is the second time hearing it. I appreciate you coming out twice now.
You got all set, Tim?
I'm all set, thank you.
Alan, thank you very
No
much
problem.
for
Thank you.
for coming out. And it's
Like I said, North Conway, they started in 2008 and could never get their act together. They hired us, and they hired us in the summer. We had everything all in place for a March meeting. We had public. We were in the pandemic, but we had public meetings. We did them over Zoom. We did everything we could to keep the voters informed so they could make an informed decision. But again, they screwed around with it, without having. And they had, just like this committee, they had very talented people, but they had other things to do. And what we did was be able to use their expertise and energy to the best of the project in whole. But we moved the project forward. I don't know how else to explain it. I'm sure there's others that do it, but that's what we do. We just move the project. And like I said, I don't like spending money. It's like it's coming out of my own pocket. On the other hand, though, I'll spend $10 to save 50 down the road in operating costs.
Every day, all day long.
Turn the lights off. Too. My wife and daughter would have every light in the house on all the time.
Put on motion filters, they'll go off.
So, this committee does not have the ability to hire you or not hire you. What we'll do is make a recommendation to the commissioners,
Okay.
and then they'll make the decision.
Good.
So I'm assuming that one of them will be in touch,
Okay.
one way or another.
Thank you.
When do you guys meet again?
The first, the 8th, maybe the 4th, to sit down for the public information night for the budget. There's a few of them coming up, and
But if they're budget meetings, we could get added on to the,
we have a meeting on the 1st currently, in case we have to adjust anything, and on the 8th for February. February 1st and February 8th.
somewhere in there.
Those are 2 meetings that,
It can be talked about either one.
right, it just has to be put on the agenda.
How soon the better, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
That's part of the discussion that comes out of this, and whatever you want to do with that.
No, good.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you for
Thanks for coming and staying.
Yeah, and if you have any questions,
I think the chief gave us,
you have my contact?
well, the chief gave us your letter.
Okay,
Um,
that has a number that'll be.
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
right here.
Okay, at the bottom, okay.
Take care.
Thank you very much. Are you back out front or out back?
Back.
You can,
Go that way.
go if you want to.
Okay.
Old business. Anybody have anything other than approving meeting minutes?
I just want to add one thing. He mentioned Dan Hebert. Dan Hebert was who built the dealership for us. Do we want to contact
No.
Dan Hebert Construction and that stuff?
I'm going to stop right there. I made all these phone calls and talked to many people that I have business relationships with or personal relationships with. And a comment that one of them made, and she decided not to participate, and it was not North Branch. She's called me after she started doing some due diligence, and she said, "How many people have you talked to?" Because there's no architects out there that somebody hasn't already either snapped up or already talked to. I will not contact any more contractors. Part of it because my reputation is out there, and I know how this process works, and Alan said it very well. You know, I'm not going to ask you to participate knowing that I'm not going to hire you. And it's a lot of work. I mean, these, I haven't looked through the ones that we got tonight, but you looked at the presentation that Harder put together and that BPS put together.
Right.
There's a lot of work, and the person that I'm speaking about that called me back and said, asked how many people you talked to. She decided not to participate because even though I talked to her right after our last meeting, which I think was maybe the 10th or 11th of December, she had a month to do it, and she said, I don't have enough time. It's a lot of work to put these things together. And like with Fulcrum, I must have talked to them 7 or 8 times with different questions that they had. So
that's something that did come out of the presentation to the commissioners, is he's seen a lot of, and that's what I mentioned to him, is that he's seen a lot of committees like this who have kind of done the same steps where we're reaching out to everyone and doing all that before we even have a solid, before they have a solid idea of what they're looking for a product and all that, of the wants versus needs and all that stuff. And he's kind of, okay, let's look at what you got. Let's pause let's catch up on the foundation a little bit more before we start laying stuff, and that's one of the things that definitely came out of, and I see the same thing, that we're already starting to put up the walls, and the foundation may not have cured yet.
Well, in my mind, I think we all know, we know what we want. We haven't specifically talked about it, but you know, that little drawing that you did on one of our first meetings, that's what we need.
But I haven't read the new ones, but, you know, the two that we had before that I read through, I mean, one of these is Warren Street, and the other one is Barker as the architect.
Right.
And we had some hesitations about, you know, past experience with those two. So hopefully these three aren't using.
Well, I don't know about Warren Street. Because the,
Barker worked for Warren Street.
Did.
right,
Did.
For years.
Kyle, it was, right, so he worked for Warren Street and was the architect that put together that first project, I think it was the Tilton School property. And then for the second, the Manville Road one, he
But down on the top.
started at Warren Street, but had then since gone out on his own. And our interaction with him with the prior committee to this one, he was on his own.
Now, was he Warren Street's expertise that's left, and have they been competently able to replace him?
That's the thing, I don't think he was their only member.
He certainly wasn't, but was he the one with the expertise with municipal?
My knowledge of Hutter, because they've done a number of fire stations, is that they're not gonna go with somebody that can't do the project.
And the only other thing that I think you have is this minutes.
Yeah. So, did everybody have a chance to review the
I kind of said them.
The-
What you had.
minutes that Kathy sent out?
I have the October 13th, November 10th, and December 8th. She also sent the September 8th, but we've already approved that.
Right.
And I did look them over, and they look fine to me.
Okay.
I just wanted to briefly.
I saw them earlier.
Well, October 13th, we have a motion to approve those minutes as written.
I move that we approve the minutes of October 13th as presented.
And we have a second from John Silly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So, the minutes from the 10/13 meeting are approved as written.
I move that we approve the minutes of the November 10th, 2021 meeting as presented.
I'll start with that one too.
We have a motion and a second to
Where's the
approve November 10th. Do you want to, I haven't printed copies, Kevin, if you want
I've read them all, I'm just trying to see the attendance.
Well, here's the attendance at the top of the
to.
town.
November 10th attendance was Commissioner Silly, firefighter Derek Farrell, call firefighter Matt Ozier, myself, yourself, and Tim Sack. Any other discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so those meeting minutes are approved of November 10th. We have December 8th.
I move that we accept the minutes of the December 8th, 2021 meeting as presented.
What's the attendance?
First, do we have a second?
Yep, I'll second.
Okay, Kevin, second. Attendance is Commissioner Silly, myself, yourself, Tim Sattler, and Chief Seaton.
Okay.
So four of those numbers here. All right.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So the meeting minutes from December 8th are approved as written.
That was the last meeting we had.
Yes, it was. We went on Christmas break.
Yep.
Thoughts on PEI Associates, or PEI Service?
Are you?
Yeah, I'll get it right eventually.
Alphabet start with A and ends with Z.
I thought it was REI, yeah.
Yes, REI Service Corporation and the services that they can bring to this committee in the process of getting the fire station approved and built.
I think it would be a good idea to, at least, step one, bring them on hourly to kind of help out with this portion of that, and then from there, we will have a little bit better, before we even get to step two, but just to get us on track with step one of the needs versus wants and things like that, and then we'll do that on an hourly basis. And that you could do from that $100,000 that was set aside for design and all that, so there's already a fund set aside for that. Because a percentage for step two would actually be broken into a budget, warrant, whatever the process going through the public. So at least step one could bring some expertise to the table. Even if it's only for a short time, and it's like, okay, being hourly, we're not contracted all the way to the end. I would recommend that we have the commissioners address the matter with them. That might help get us onto that slope properly.
What would the first step be to ask them for a proposal?
I think that,
Submit a
I think
proposal.
this committee should forward a recommendation to the commissioners to have Mr. Clark's firm present a proposal.
Okay. Yeah.
And the intent would be that from that proposal, there'll be an outline of his services, the costs. And I've heard nothing, and I might even look for something, but I've heard nothing that tells me that's not the way to go. I'm beyond comfortable. To hear, the guy's a fire chief, and he says, I know the difference between want and need. Only fire chief I've heard in my life say that.
Well, he comes from a call department background, so he understands not Manchester budget.
Right.
He understands limited budgets and how to make things work, and things like that.
So I think that the proposal from that company is in our best interest. So I guess in the form of a motion, I would move that the building committee forward a recommendation of the commissioners to obtain a proposal from REI.
REI Services.
I would second that.
Any discussion?
I think that pending is voted on, I think that the chair of the committee should kind of generate a memo of intent for that to the commissioners in writing. I can speak to it but I think it should come appropriately that way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. What do we want that proposal to entail? John was talking about phase one, and are you referring to what he outlined in his letter to the commissioners or to the chief?
Well, I don't have that, that's at home.
Well, okay, I'll just quickly, assist in establishing a building committee that will provide support within the precinct. Manage the entire process, serving as the owner's rep. Attend and present to the precinct and the general public in public meetings as would be needed. Provide written status reports on regular frequency. Expand the building committee to consist of commission members, fire department members.
I think he knows where we're at. Right?
Yeah, I'm not thinking all that stuff yet. I think the initial part is the initial development or committee planning process. Or you could even propose it as in stages of the planning process, possibly with the lead-in to other things down the road. So like a step 2 or step 3 process, but the initial one is, I think, is trying to help with what are we trying to do here.
But I get the impression, or no, it's not impression, my opinion, that he would present a proposal that gets this thing approved and what he does along the way. That's what I think. So I don't think it's a pick and choose his services. I think it comes as a package, and it takes place at different times.
Yeah.
So he said himself, the first is, typically is hourly. Beyond that, once you have a budget, I think is the trigger for.
For the
That's
percentage.
what it turns to percentage, did
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, percentage, but
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever he wants to present for a proposal based on his services.
Yep.
And I don't think we should be looking at that proposal and saying, yeah, we'll take this and this and this. I think it's a whole deal.
I believe you're correct. I don't think we have the opportunity to choose a la carte what we're gonna have them do and
Okay.
what we're not gonna have them
Right.
do. My understanding was also that he charges an hourly fee until we get to, we have an approval from the town or from the district, and then there's a fee based upon that guaranteed maximum cost. So, for example, whatever their hourly rate is until we get to March of 2023, and then it's gonna be, I think he's, in his letter, he said in the area of 3% of whatever that number, that final number is. So if it's $3 million, then it's 3% of that, it's $90,000.
So, my only reservation, having thought for the last few seconds, is we have money. You mentioned the money. The way that warrant article was written, it was for design XYZ. I don't know if that money can be used for his service. He's not designing anything. He's not, and I don't know what the wording of the warrant article was. I'd like to think we could.
I don't know off the top of my head. I think right now, like a proposal, as you're saying, a proposal to get it going,
Yeah.
and then have the commissioners look at that.
They'll figure that, the financing thing is their deal.
Right, figure out the wire, the writing up on the wall to see if that would cover it, or
We'll have
vice
to find the
versa.
money somewhere else.
Yep,
And I think the intent was to cover that type of services.
Yeah. Engineering
Probably should
and-
verify that.
Yeah.
And when you write a warrant article, if it's, the way it's worded, triggers how you can actually use it.
and we'll look at that, and if we have questions, we'll go to DRA and things like that.
Well,
Be
and-
on the top of it.
We're
Yeah,
close
but we-
enough, we're close enough to the annual meeting that
We could.
if the commissioners determine that we cannot use
Right.
funds out of that,
An adjustment can be
I
made
don't
up
remember
until the fourth.
what it was called, what was,
It's a non-lapsing.
no, I know it was non-lapsing and that we put $100,000 into it, but I don't remember what the fund was called.
Yeah.
But if they decide that, no, we can't use those funds, then we can write a warrant article that,
No, warrant articles are,
You'll be beyond
you
time.
already passed that, I think. No.
no, we wouldn't.
You'll be on-
I think the
Warrant articles would, gonna be done in February, right?
I think the first is the first seems to be, that's the last date that a 25 person, or 25 signature petition can be submitted.
So the commissioners can write a warrant.
I think that's the cutoff. We've already generated our warrant articles.
If you still, you can change it, you still have time, but it's, the window's closing.
Yes, I think the first of
But
February.
there wouldn't be
I think.
anything to prevent somebody from motioning from the floor to add $25,000 to the budget for professional services.
Exactly.
You have to be cautious though, because you can take money away, but to add money in is, it has to be within the intent of the warrant article or the overall budget. You can't vary so much. It's a process, it's a nightmare. But yeah, the commissioners will work that part out either on the fourth. I think the first step is your motion to give what you want in the proposal and send it up.
So, again, my understanding will be that the motion that has been seconded is that the building committee will make a recommendation to the commissioners that they request a proposal from REI Service Corporation, Mr. Clark, to provide us with their services to get us to provide us with a proposal for their services.
Sounds good to me. A little bit worse, I think, as it's in black and white in front of you.
Yes. All right,
I think it meets the general intent.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. I will contact the three commissioners and let them know the recommendation of the building committee. That being said, part of our charge, or part of our task tonight was to review these proposals.
Can you send one of those down for me?
Oh, you didn't get one? I'm sorry.
I would like to make a suggestion that maybe we table that a moment as it sort of just put the cart further before the horse. Just a thought.
That was where I was going.
Excellent. I like the way you thought.
Great minds think alike.
I would make a motion to table it at this time.
Yeah, I would certainly like to read it in advance.
Yeah.
It was fascinating, the level of detail that they put into these proposals.
Yeah, and just looking at the thickness of the ones that we received today, I think there's more detail in the
Yep.
two that we received prior to this.
But as you said, this is just a snapshot in time of what they're bringing to the table.
Right.
Some good reading.
So we have motion to table that. Do we have a second?
Also,
Everybody in favor? I will email the commissioners tomorrow and ask that be brought up at the earliest possible time. Because in my discussions with these contractors, I told them that we were meeting today and that we would be meeting again on the 26th of January. And that at that time, we would make a decision as to who we would want to interview. So we need to have that decision by the commissioners, hopefully at their February 1st meeting, so that we can then contact these contractors who have spent time and resources putting these proposals together, to let them know that we've kind of we've changed the process a little bit, but they're still going to be part of that process.
yeah,
Yes, because I do want to, I appreciate their time that they invested in it.
Oh, yeah, and it, as we've seen, it takes some time for them to put these proposals together. I would not be surprised if I received phone calls or emails from probably the first two that submitted. And just know that I'll let them know. If I do, I'm not going to reach out to them, but if I do, I'll let them know where we're at.
in the process.
And,
That's yours. I didn't bring it.
no, I think it was.
Oh, part of the packet?
Yeah, it is part of the packet. I think it fell out. Any new business?
so Article 6 last year was, they took a vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the purposes of design, engineering, and architectural fees associated with the construction, addition, and/or renovation of a fire station or stations. So, on the face of it,
But part of this is the design of what you need for space requirements.
well, that's what I'm saying, on the face of it, I'm on the fence. I could see it going either way.
Okay.
So,
We can bring that up with Gary,
you're probably gonna need to
just make sure we're covered.
get an opinion from somewhere, either legal or
Yeah.
whatever.
I think we've spent our legal budget for the
You know,
year.
I think we'd probably be okay. I think the intent, if it became an argument, you could argue the intent. And I would say that
Yeah,
you
the
can't
design
do this,
requirements.
that's part of it,
Right.
what I think.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, we'll ask questions appropriately.
Okay.
And at what point do you think it's appropriate to figure the connection, no connection to the existing building? I seem to be hung up on that. I don't.
I would say get someone on board and then they can, because they can talk about the pros and cons
of
and
that.
costs versus not
I think he
costs.
can answer that, I think Alan can answer that question very easily.
Okay, good.
But he, you know, and I didn't want to get into it tonight with him, but I wanted to ask, when you say connected, what does that mean? Does that mean that they share a wall, where if we just build a vestibule, or?
I'm
you
sure
know,
he's had
If
all
it's 6
those
feet of
exact
open
questions
space,
thrown at him.
whatever it is.
Right, and I guess I wanted to know, because that's on my mind as well, can we just join those two buildings together, you know, the new and the old together, or does it have to be a separate building, because that changes everything,
Yeah, but
but it wasn't,
it probably wasn't appropriate timing for it yet.
not for tonight.
Right.
Right. Membership of the committee, so that's something that is in his proposal and insisting with, but when we started this committee, we agreed that if somebody missed 3 meetings or more, that we would make the recommendation to the commissioners that they be relieved of their seat on the committee. Julia Chase has missed more than 3 meetings. We want to make that recommendation.
Is she a 3 or 2?
This is the third.
This would be the 3rd, okay, all right. I know she was at the one where we had the group there, which would have been the meeting before he was there.
Yes. She was at the commissioners.
Correct, okay, so it's,
Do we want to make?
In that, there's another guy too, but I think we
Bill
scared
Watson.
him away.
Well, you
What's
were
his
going to
name,
check
Bill?
and see if,
Chief was supposed to reach out to him.
right, and I don't think that he's really in the same place, because of our misunderstanding at our first meeting. And it didn't sound, from what the chief was saying last week, it didn't sound as though he was really an email kind of guy. He was more pick up the phone or like that kind of guy.
I
Chief was
believe,
gonna check and see if
right,
he still wanted to be on the committee.
I believe the commissioners wanted it to get posted again out on, I'm not sure where, I couldn't say off the top of my head, but we were gonna try and get the information out there by the websites and things like that, the Facebook, the town.
If
And
they
I think we
it's-
actually, we're trying to reach out to the town.
if we
notices
want it
too.
on the town website, I think that we can make some space.
Okay.
But you gotta let me know, that's all.
Actually, I'm gonna let the chair possibly talk to Kathy about seeing if she can reach out to the towns for,
No, I'm happy to do that, but I don't, personally, my opinion is that I don't think anybody really looks at the town websites
it's just one more opportunity.
unless they're, I go on Tilton's website if I gotta, register my dogs or register my car, or if I got a, quick question about something that,
We do get a fair amount of comments, someone will either stop me somewhere, or I'll get an email from someone, or even Facebook messages, or a regular message on my phone. Hey, I'm looking for this, I don't see it on the website.
Yep.
I do get a fair amount of that. So
Yeah.
someone's, I
I'm not
don't look
suggesting,
at it.
I'm not suggesting that we
I-
don't put it out on the town
It's
website,
just one
but I
more
think that we
resource.
need to put it out on social media.
Other places.
Yeah. And, I
There's
think,
there's a few town pages on the social media that you can go out as just a post and stuff like that.
I mean, the town has a Facebook page.
Yes,
who looks at it though?
a
That's,
lot of people.
and I'm not saying they don't, I'm just asking, because I think Tilton has a Facebook page,
They
but
do.
I've never looked at it.
Yep, they do. There's a few.
Does the town of Tilton has one too? I've never seen it, but I believe it.
I think if we put it in some of the community pages,
Mhm.
like Hello Northfield and.
Right,
The,
that's the ones I was talking about.
The
There's Tilton
Northfield.
Northfield talking, Hello
Yeah.
Northfield.
Northfield
There's a
resident
Tilton one, there's a
information.
Tilton Northfield Franklin one.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a few of them.
what do you guys think?
Wherever it can go.
Just put a notice up there that, A, that there's a building committee, and B, we need more
Interested
membership.
member.
Yeah.
I would make a recommendation sending it up to the commissioners to do it, and then they can direct Kathy or a designee to do it, just because it's coming from the
Rather than coming from a person, like, there's people that don't like Kevin on Facebook, there's people that don't like me on Facebook.
right, same with me.
What are you talking?
Right, but I think sending it to the commissioners and having them delegate it down, and then they'll have someone post it, I think. Because then it's coming from like the
Yeah.
admin assistant or something,
Yeah.
from a little bit more official.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Good.
Good idea.
Anything else, guys?
Good.
Our next meeting is scheduled for the 26th of January.
Yes.
Do we need to meet?
I would say no, because I think the biggest thing is you're gonna be waiting on getting to the commissioners first, and they will not have
And it's
anything
not gonna happen
first.
before then, so
Right.
there's no point in this meeting until the commissioners have accepted our recommendation.
Right. Now, if you send a written recommendation out, the commissioners sometimes will do a correspondence, not as a forum, but where Kathy will send it out to us, and when we can reply back if we're in favor or not. But I still think the 26th would be too premature on your chance to draft it and send it to her and all that. I think it's your call, but,
No, I don't think there's any.
and I don't think we'd be able to schedule him here, or a
So,
representative, so.
it was a fluke that he could come here tonight,
Yes.
because he is typically tied up on Wednesdays, because we had talked about moving our meeting to another day to accommodate his presentation.
If that was the case, then we went with his agency and stuff.
So,
We would try to work accordingly.
Any other business that we need to address?
none from me.
So our next meeting will be, and I can't see that calendar.
Fire ahead.
And the one after that would be the 9th of February.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, the 2nd and 4th.
So the 9th of February will be our next meeting.
Yep.
Great. Seeing no other business before us, meeting is adjourned at 7:07 PM.
Oh,